Good to see you back, guys. Again, I am back with a new tutorial related JavaScript DOM. And in this tutorial, we are going to learn DOM CSS styling methods. Basically, we have three methods that can use to style CSS DOM. The first method is style, and the second method is class name, and the third method is class list. Using this method, you can get CSS value, otherwise you can set CSS value. Suppose you want to extract CSS property from element. For that, you can directly use style method. Also, you can set new value using style method. So let's start the practical and see how it's work. As you can see, side by side I open my Visual Studio Code editor and my browser using Live Server extension. And I open my previous HTML document named index.html. With that, I open main.js file. So at first, we are going to style the header portion. And at first, I'm going to show you the example of style property. If I show you my index.html file, as you can see in this div, we have an ID named header. And also we have style attribute in this div. So I'm going to target this element using header ID. So copy the ID name and back to my main.js file. And here I'm going to type document.querySelector hashtag our ID name, header. At first, I'm going to show you how we can get style property from this element. For that, here I need to type dot style. And if I show you my index.html, as you can see, inside our style attribute, we have a property named border. So I want to get border property value. So I copy the property name border and back to my main.js file. And here, after style, I'm going to use dot and our property name border. And before I save this file, I'm going to open my console. Inspect console. If I save this file, you can see in my console, it's written the border property value from the header element. So we can get CSS value from this method. But if I pass a property which is not exist in our element, let me show you. As you can see, here we use only border property. We do not use any other CSS property like color, padding. So if I type color here and then save this file, as you can see in my console, it's written blank. And now I'm going to set a font color to our header section. So back to my index.html file, and here I'm going to type semicolon, and after semicolon, I'm going to use another property which is color. Color yellow. If I save this file, you can see in my console it's written yellow. For now, I'm going to remove the responsive mode, and if I type something inside this div, so I'm going to type hello. And save this file. Now you can see in my header section, the font color is yellow. So this is how we can get CSS property value using style method. And now I'm going to show you using style method how we can set new CSS property in an HTML element. In our previous example, we get value using style method. And now we are going to learn how we can assign a new property value to a HTML element. Now I want to set background color to this element. So I'm back to my main.js file and I'm going to copy this portion and I comment out this line. And in the next line, I'm going to paste it. And now I want to set background color to this div. For that, here we need to type dot style method. After that, we need to pass the CSS property name which I want to set in this element. And I want to set background color. So here I'm going to type background color, and I want to use blue and semicolon to end this line. And remember, in CSS we need to use dash between background and color, but in JavaScript you don't need to use dash sign, and also you need to capitalize C character. So let's save the file and see what it returned. After save this file, you can see the result. Here you can see it's changed the header background color. I do not save my HTML file, that's why hello is still exists in our header portion. So let's save the index file again. Now it's gone. And if I show you my elements section and hover my cursor on this header portion, here you can see it's set a new CSS property which is background color blue. Similarly, I want to add another property to this element. So again, I'm going to duplicate this line and I'm going to comment out previous one. And now I want to add padding. So here I'm going to remove the blue color and the background color property, and after style I'm going to type padding. And for every direction, I want 50 pixel padding. So here I'm going to type 50 pixel. And if I save this file, you can see the result. It adds 50 pixel padding from all of the direction. So we learn how we can set value and get value using style method. And now I'm going to talk about our second method, which is class name. Using this, you can get any class value. Also, you can set any class name. So let's start the practical and see how it's works. So let's back to the HTML file. As you can see, in our header div, we have a class named XYZ, and I'm going to remove it now. Now, in this element, we don't have any class. And I want to set a class name to this element. Now, let's back to the main.js file. First, I'm going to duplicate this line and comment out previous one. And here I'm going to type document.querySelector.method name, which is class name. Class name. And I want to set a new class name. And our class name is ABC. And also I want to get the class name and I want to print the class name in my console. For that, again I'm going to duplicate this line and here I'm going to type our variable name, element. Element equal to document.querySelector header, and I want to return our class name only. I don't want to set any value. If I set this file and show you my console, it's written ABC. So here we set a new class name and get new class name using this method. And also you can see the class name in my element section, class ABC. Now you might have questioned what is the practical usage of this method. What can we do after change the class name? Let me show you. For that, we need to jump into our CSS file, style.css. And here I'm going to style a class. Here you can see we already style our header element using header ID. But now I want to add some padding. For that, we can use this class. And our class name is ABC. ABC. And inside the curly braces, I'm going to type padding. Padding 50 pixel. If I set this file, you can see the result. It adds padding from all direction. But if I back to my main.js file and comment out this line and then set this file, you can see now there is no padding. Because now we do not assign any class name ABC. And if I show you my element section, as you can see, there is no class name ABC. But we already styled this class in our style section. So if I uncomment this line and save this file again, as you can see, it had padding from all direction. And if I back to my console, you can see the class name ABC again. So this is one of the main practical usage of this method, class name. Using these DOM methods, we can set any CSS properties, any attribute to our HTML elements. Let me show you one thing. We can set multiple classes at once using this method. So here I'm going to type XYZ. If I save this file, as you can see, now it's written both the classes name, ABC and XYZ. But if I select this element and show you this style portion, now you can see the padding come from only one class, which is ABC, not from XYZ. Now let's talk about our last CSS styling method, which is class list. And what is the difference between class list and class name? So let's start the practical. So at first, I'm going to duplicate this line and comment out previous one. And here I'm going to type our method name, class list. If I save this file, you can see in my console, it's written the same result. It's written in string, and in this string, it written both the class name. But if I type class list here, let me show you. And then save this file, now you can see it's written an array, DOM token list. And if I open this drop down, you can see total length is 2. And for both the class name, it assigned different index number. At 0 index number, it assigned ABC. At 1 index number, it assigned XYZ. So class list return array, but class name returns string. But the main difference is this function comes with its own methods. I'm not going to show you all of this method in this tutorial, but in this tutorial, I'm going to show you the two methods. Our first method is add. At first, I'm going to remove all of this class name, XYZ and ABC. And in my HTML file, I'm going to assign the class name here, class ABC. And if I save this file, you can see there is no changes because we already added CSS property in our style file. Now, in this element, I want to add a new class with ABC. For that, we need to use add method. So I'm going to remove all of this, and here I'm going to type class list dot add. Using this method, we can add multiple classes. And here, I'm going to add a class name QWE. And if I save this file, you can see in my console it returned two class names ABC and QWE. But in our HTML file, here we assign only one class, ABC. But we assign the second class from the JavaScript DOM. And if you want to add another class with that, yes, you can. Just after quotation, here you need to use comma, and inside the double quotes, you can pass another class name. And here I'm going to type ASD. If I save this file, you can see in my console, now we have total 3 classes in this element, ABC, QWE, and ASD. So using this add method, you can add multiple classes at once. Now let's talk about next class list method, which is remove. So at first, I'm going to remove this method add. Then I'm back to my index.html file. And here, inside the class, I'm going to assign two another classes in my HTML page, X, Y, Z, and ASD. And I'm going to save this file. After save this file, you can see in my console, it returned 4 class name because we do not save our main.js file. If I save this file, you can see the result. Now it's written an error because we do not use any method here. That's why it's written an error. But if I comment out this line and save this file, now you can see in my console, it's written 3 class name ABC, XYZ, ASD. Now I want to remove one of the class from this list. I want to remove XYZ class. So here I'm going to use a method name remove. So I uncomment this line, and here I'm going to type remove. And inside the round braces, we need to pass the class name, and I want to remove XYZ. So inside the double quotes, I'm going to type XYZ. If I save this file, you can see the result. It's written total 2 class name, ABC and ASD. So using this class list method, you can remove class names. Not only that, at the same time, you can remove multiple class names. With that, I want to remove ASD class. So after comma, inside the double quotes, we need to type ASD. Now, it's written only one class name, ABC. So it's removed both the classes, XYZ and ASD. But if I show you my index.html file, all of the 3 classes are still exist in this element. But using DOM, we remove both the class name, XYZ and ASD. So this is it for this tutorial. In our upcoming tutorial, we are going to learn add event listener. Also, I'm going to cover all the class list methods in our upcoming tutorials. So thanks for watching this video. Stay tuned.